Lord Ramachandra was in the 24th end of Treta Yuga, the 9th of Kaitra, so he reigned for 11,000 years, his son Kush for 10,000 years. Being in Africa, Kush in Africa, well, he could disseminate his son to rule from them. I mean, Bharat is the whole of the world. He can choose wherever he wants to be. Yes, it would be usual for him to choose an area to rule in the currently known area of Bharat. 17.5 million years ago was the 24th end of Treta Yuga. We would take scripturally, yeah, they had to have been there, and scripturally humans are there 2 billion years ago. What Bing has recently put on this server about that Lanka is not Sri Lanka, that Lanka is to the western side of the tip of southern India, not the eastern side of Sri Lanka. It seems that Lanka is a place that we cannot see now. If we look at the land, the huge land that appeared only 11,000 years ago on the eastern side of Britain, it's called Dogger Bank. That was a huge piece of land that was all used to be connected, not very long ago. So it is very possible that this Kurandam could have been there with sea level changes. There is one geologist just posted Kumari Kandam Lemuria. There's many positions of Atlantis that has been set over thousands of years, even from the ancient Greeks, to the modern time geologist from Indonesia. He puts a very heavy scientific case of where Atlantis could have been near his super ancient pyramids in the Indonesian islands. And as you can see from this Lemuria, it spans both sides. It's so large from the tip of India. Within that 100 million years, it does pinpoint every million year its movement. And when it goes over the 17.5 million year age which we are interested in, the other video was of the temperature of that age. Yeah. When we are interested in the Rama's time, we can see that both Sri Lanka and the supposed Lanka are both on the equatorial line at that moment. Sri Lanka being on the eastern side, but Lanka being on the western side. They're both on the equatorial line. But what you said about, yes, we have all these people with traditions preserving stuff, but we also have acharyas refuting the placement of temples. They say, no, it's not here. It's somewhere else. Through my meditation and through my books and research, it is you're in the wrong place. And that can happen just over 100 years. So imagine how far we can be out in 17.5 million years. So if we take the name, somebody mentioned Atlanta, like Atlantis, or the Aztec have ATL letters in everything, Atl, Nahuatl language. But here we have Lemuria, and my favorite animal, the lemurs, being on the Madagascan side. But Madagascar was also attached to the part of Bharat 100 million years ago, much older antiquity. It was like a protection as Sri Lanka is now. As someone said, Sri Lanka always protects India. It's always stuck to India there, to the protector, just like Madagascar was. Everything can divide and drift over time, yes? Or sink. If you look at the movement on the video, Sri Lanka as it is now, it's always the same. It hasn't had large changes of submergence or the opposite, regression and transgression. It hasn't had large volcanic growths. It's been pretty much the same, Sri Lanka. From all the evidence that we have of the fossils, the volcanism, the other continents or lands, they do change a lot. But mostly Bharat, as it is now India, it hasn't changed over hundreds and hundreds of millions of years. It seems to have this strange protection just as it's about to collide catastrophically, but it can disappear from our eyes. Maybe we're never spiritually advanced enough to ever see it. Like in the when Arjun was sent to obliterate armies, when each Pandava was sent in different directions to win over the lands. There was an area where it was spiritual, where normal people couldn't see. I can't remember if the opposition were either boastful that they couldn't be seen, but he could see them, so he threatened them, or whether they were just happy that Yudhishthira would be king anyway of Bharat. They would be subservient to him. But either way, he was successful to a spiritual, I could say a ghostly opposition. It is a very important point about the angle of view that you're talking about. Going up into a chariot that flies in 10 directions, that's a Vimana. You're looking at a bird's eye view. Or whether it's something, some other scripture given from the view of the Devas from much higher up from their sexual vision, where they would see something differently. And another plane, explain this with Dwaraka. We can go to Dwaraka now, yet we will never see the area that is possible to even have 16,108 palaces of Krishna. We can see slightly offshore the archaeological evidence of a mundane version of Dwaraka. Without, yes, it's got some cubic blocks and some archways, some evidences of the gateways of Dwaraka, but never the divine vision of every wall being gem encrusted. I heard the Devas were allowed to grab all the gems from the walls. All the walls made out of gems in the staircases. They could take it before the deluge, which makes sense because the Devas love taking the material gemstones, the best of the best. Even without the concept of sinking, easily sinking and being there, there is Dwaraka which you can walk into, but in that same spot where you're standing, there is a different spiritual world in which you only can see if you are given that entrance. I'm sure that every Deva has a secret area like that, where the only area in the world that is not destroyed, where it's safe. There is a lot of very good arguments on both sides. Golkonda mines were at the beginning, in our current known history, the only place in the world where diamonds came from in the whole world before South Africa was found to have mine. If it was the only mine known in the world, it must be the Koh-i-Noor, and tradition states that it was from the Krishna River in Golkonda, and that the Kastalba could have been Kastalba's gem, but without the change of colour. But anyway, he had this scripture which the temples refused to translate for him. But he eventually got someone to far away to translate it, and it was very interesting Sanskrit manuscript that was talking about the diamonds of Golkonda, and it included Balarama and Krishna, and he did something that would be unexpected of his spirituality. In other words, he took it in a metaphorical way to explain the geology. So it is. This is Hinduism. You can either take it as it is, or you can take it that the written Sanskrit was made that way in order to protect itself from future problematic people. And he was successful in his way of translating it into the geological way. He found the old mine shafts of Golkonda, and he was repaid with finding great many diamonds of different colours and a great size. It was at least $2.5 million that he sold it for as the last reservoir now. I think it's by the government. They've all flooded it on purpose, sadly, all Golkonda region. With radioactivity, there is only one, not even a scientist, who said that the Battle of Kurukshetra, because of the astros thrown, were atom bombs and therefore were very radioactive. But there was no evidence of radioactive skeletons. Well, we can't dig that deep down anyway, but the reaction to the rocks, possibly you can have a glaze, but there is remnants of radioactivity in your present Kurukshetra area. You've got Haryana, the headquarters of deformities, fetal deformities, that's from radiation. You have the water that you're drinking also there, and in the place of the 5 rivers, Punjab, and Punjab, is also very highly radioactivity, many times above the safety threshold, and even 40 times more by another threshold if they make up these thresholds. The dust, they have checked all around India. The dust is usually a problem with radioactive dust, gets in our lungs and then kills us with cancer that way, but the dust isn't a problem. The existing problem with radioactivity from the Kurukshetra area is definitely uranium source in the water supply. And regarding the going deeper and down under these rocks, the temples are only really predominant in Kali Yuga. In the other yugas, we don't need the temples. We are just naturally more faithful. Really, I should, as a geologist, I should look more, because I'm the Vaishnava side, and Srimad Bhagavatam, I should look more into the Shiva, like his friend's family, because Shiva Lingam is all based around fossils and rocks and crystals, and it's certainly my area that I should be looking into. Underground temples is what I know from the Mexican side. My father's Mexican, and they have great tunnel systems under the temple. The further down you go, even if there is no radioactive rocks in the area, it's going to get a lot hotter. You can even die in a relatively shallow Mexican cave of crystals, gypsum, and just with the humidity, you dry up like a raisin. Unfortunately, they block off underground systems. They don't allow even geodetic surveys to magnetism, LIDAR, to penetrate, just with modern science, to look at the underground system. I've looked at pyramids around the world, and there are many, there's thousands of them in dozens and dozens of different countries, and yet we're told just about the Egyptian. Your colonial invaders, or any invaders, weren't able to even destroy this top-down temple rock. It was too hard for them. The same situation in Indraprastha, now New Delhi. The Mughals weren't able to destroy it, but the British finally could with the cannons. As you say, the British written work about the women who went down there, that is important in a modern day analogy of people. There's a YouTube of an old man living around the Sphinx who said he was born there, and as a child he used to swim under the Sphinx. And it turned out to be true. There is at least two tunnels at the side and in the neck of the Sphinx that goes down into the Sphinx, and there's a water level down there, which the water level used to be higher. He's still living. So he's on YouTube. Let's say if this YouTube was 20 years old, he was an old man, like 90 years old. Yeah, so even in that short amount of time, he did have to go down deep into the Sphinx for the water level to be able to swim there. He was an actual boy swimming there. It's India where you have so many people benefited to remember their past lifetime. It is such a boon to have the qualification to remember that. You asked me about what does science think about the radioactivity and such of the Kailash. I would say I wouldn't dare. With knowing of anything to do with, although I said it's important for me just to follow Shiva, I wouldn't empirically try to pin it down. Anything to do with Kailash, because Shiva means business. He means death to those who want to physically disturb him. And there are at least 6, maybe 8 or 10 different Kailashes. So you said the one in the Chinese zone. There's another Tibetan one. In one of the Kailashes, there's nobody who's been able to scale it. All these mountaineers that can scale every mountain, they can't do this one, because every time they go up there, exactly, over that lake, yeah, they can go to a certain level and then they have to turn back willingly, that they feel they need to turn back, or they feel sick, or a blizzard happens, or they just die. I read today that there is a river that turned into a lake in 1950. It takes one earthquake to turn a river into a lake. One earthquake to reverse the flow of a river. So many things can happen, easily happen. A salty lake, no matter at what high level it is, it can do with many geological ways. It can be a salt plume from deep below and exude from the rocks around it. It can be of an old ocean that has been ploughed up, subducted, or a glacier can melt and the tectonic plate rises up. There's many ways in which the same geological feature can be created. So lakes in mountains have very many names themselves, even if they mean the same thing in English. You can take the Welsh Coombe, C-W-M, or a tarn, or the French cirque, C-I-R-Q-U-E, or just a glacial lake, mountain lake, or just lake itself, lago, lagoon from Spanish. Many lakes. But the scriptural difference between freshwater and brined water of his lake, I don't know. The only thing I know about the Manashvar is very, very important with, I think it's the same lake that we're talking about, Manashvar. Goddess Ganga came from the high level, over Mount Meru, down onto the earth, but captured by the hair of Shiva. So this was described as a Meru high above the material earth, whether that is the description like a toadstool, whether the base is on earth, whether we can see it or not, and then it rises so high, many tens of, like 10,000 yojanas, and then on top of that Meru there's a large plain, like the mushroom head, figuratively about 8 mile per yojana, but if it was nautical, when we're talking about space, it tends to be 6 mile per yojana, but either way, no matter which way we put it, whether we are using cubic volume or squared volume or of the perimeter, it's still very, very large numbers, which seem to be outside the bounds of our current size of Earth.